help from others. And when we have help from others, it really becomes our obligation to give back. And since OCA is helping you, I think it's worth taking a minute to look at what OCA has done and why it does it, because you're going to have plenty of opportunity. We all have plenty of opportunity in our lives to give back. We only have so much time, and the question is where we're going to put that focus. I think you can say all of us again, but certainly the Asian American community and your family, the culture that you come from in your community, has a certain history. And that history is one that you need to reflect on, because at some point we all need to remember where we came from. And that history is one that has a great deal of triumph, but it also has one that did not get to that triumph without having to fight. And so today, the things that OCA looks at, immigration reform, healthcare reform, assuring that we're a more vibrant democracy and that more people vote and that people's voting rights aren't deprived, and looking at the issues of bullying or hate crime, which have become more and more pervasive, are four areas that I would suggest to you, the folks here in this room, by being part of OCA, work on those issues. But I would suggest to you that as you go forward and find ways that you want to give back, and I'm confident that you're going to want to give back because those are the kind of folks you're going to be, that those are things that you can look at. And when you do, you can come back to OCA as a resource and say, how can I help my community, particularly Tucson, but wherever you may be in these areas. So I want to congratulate you for being the recipients of the awards, and I also want to congratulate the OCA for having the vision and the focus to stay on this path of helping our young people in our community, because it will make for a better place for all of us. So thank you very much, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for your words of wisdom to the students and parents. Thank you very much, and your encouragement to OCA to continue what we're doing. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Daisy Barriga Patel, Associate Director, Center for International Education and Global Engagement, Pima Community College. Dr. Patel holds a BA in Speech Communication from San Francisco State University and MA in College Student Personnel from New York University, and PhD, Higher Education Administration from Indiana University. She is passionate about issues of social justice, leadership, and higher education that impact Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Patel.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Lee Lambert, who is the Chancellor of Pima Community College. Chancellor Lambert has been at Pima Community College since 2013, and I just want to share a few pieces of information so you could get to know him a little bit before he comes to the stage. So Chancellor Lambert is a champion for social justice and civil rights, and he has extensive experience in legal affairs and human resources. Chancellor Lambert has been recognized locally and nationally from various community organizations, and I want to just highlight a couple of recognitions given to him from the Asian Pacific Islander American community. APAHI, which is the Asian Pacific Americans in Higher Education, recognized Chancellor Lambert in 2015 for his leadership in higher education and contributions to the Asian Pacific Islander American community, not only nationally, but also locally within our Tucson community. Also, PACA, the Pan-Asian Community Alliance, recognized Chancellor Lambert in 2016 as the Man of the Year. Chancellor Lambert serves on the board as a board member of the National Asian Pacific American Islander Council. And I just want to share, as an employee, of Pima Community College, where I've worked for almost 9 years now, that it has really been a joy for me to have a leader at Pima Community College that is our chancellor, who is of Asian descent. Because sometimes in higher education, we don't always see examples and role models of people who are of Asian heritage. And so I just want to say thank you, Lee, for being such a great role model and example. So if you could please join me in welcoming Chancellor Lambert.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank Daisy, and I want to especially thank Wendy and OCA for asking me to come up and say a few words to the scholarship recipients who will be going on to bigger and better things at their respective universities they've been accepted to. But so I want to really, my talk is really a message for them. And so I want to put it in a larger context, if you will. And I'll start with a fable. And I'm not going to probably tell the fable correctly, but I think it's the gist that's most important. So there was a king in India once upon a time, and he wanted to reward one of the wise men who had developed, some people would say, the game of chess. But as an important part of that game, he had to develop the chessboard. And as you know, there's 64 spaces on a chessboard. So he wanted to reward this wise man. So he asked him, "What would you like as your reward?" And the wise man, to the astonishment of the king, said, "I only wanted a grain of rice. But here's how I want that grain of rice to be given to me. 1 grain of rice on the first square, and then on the next square, you double that, and then the next square, you double that." You get the idea, right? So by the time you get to that 64th square, all of a sudden you're not talking $1 million or $10 million or even $1 trillion. You're talking an ungodly number, right? He was a wise man. But why do I share this story? Because we are now living in the age of acceleration, as Thomas Friedman likes to frame in his latest book, Thanks for Being Late. And so what do we mean by the age of acceleration? There are 2 key forces driving that. Obviously, we know that technology is one aspect of that, but globalization is the other facet of that. But underlying this is this notion of Moore's Law, that computing power is doubling almost every 2 years. And all of us have a smartphone. Apple put together the smartphone, and they launched it in 2007. It's 10 years later. Think of the phenomenal changes that have been happening in our country, in our community, but all over the world. We are more connected today than we ever have been. That has been driving profound changes in our communities, all across the country, the state, and the globe. So what does that mean? Well, let me put that in this context of what does it mean for our students? Because they are the ones that we will be looking for to help guide many of us in this room in terms of developing the necessary leadership to help us make sense of this. As human beings, we have a hard time adapting to change, but to adapt to change that's accelerating at a pace that we can't even comprehend. We need leaders who start to come to the table and start helping us how to make sense of it. But let me put that in another context. And I want to put it back into this notion. I was asked to say something about the model minority myth. And so let me put it in that context. So where does that myth come from? It comes out of a period in our history in this country of great turmoil. So as many of you may be aware, or may not be, following World War II, this country was grappling with a juvenile delinquent challenge, a huge challenge. In fact, movies were made about this challenge. Some of you may be aware of that. But we were also dealing with racial unrest in this country in the same time period. And so, coming out of that, some folks, and some might say liberal folks, coined the phrase the model minority. And guess who they held up as the model minority? They held up us Asian folks as the model minority. But that really didn't serve to the purpose, if you will. What it did was it pitted one racial minority against another racial minority, saying, especially to our African Americans, be more like the Asians. But it really clouded the real issues, because as many of us know in the Asian community, we're not all the same. We come from many different countries, we speak many different languages, and not everybody is as successful as the myth alleges. But what I want to say to the students, most importantly, don't buy into the myth. Don't buy into the myth. And don't let that myth drive a wedge between us as people, as human beings. Because we are more alike, despite our differences in race and ethnicity and gender and all of those isms, than not. We are more alike. I've lived on 3 continents. I've traveled to many countries. And some of you have done the same thing. You know we're more alike than not. So what does that mean for you as students as you go off to college? Let me just bring it back to my experience as a college student, because I hope that you will embrace this wonderful opportunity in your lives. Going to college or to a university is a special time in one's life. So please maximize it, but please don't lose the opportunities that it also provides you. First and foremost, I would say, get to know your faculty. Your faculty are going to become key to not only your success at that university, but they're going to be key to your success as you leave the university. It's important to have a relationship with them. Yes, they may seem intimidating. You may look at them and be in awe of them. But many of them do what they do because of the students. So please get to know. I was fortunate. My faculty member, one of them sat me down. He said, Lee, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to go on to law school. He says, well, let me tell you the good news and the bad news of that. I said, well, okay, start with the bad news. He says, you can't write. Now, if you want to be a lawyer, and those lawyers in the room understand this, you got to be able to write, right? Well, he says, well, here's the good news, Lee. We have people here at the college who will help you on your writing. So I took advantage of the resources at the Writing Center. Right? That's one of the key messages. There are a lot of resources at your respective universities that are there to help support your success. Please don't be afraid. Don't let your pride get in the way of taking advantage of the opportunities that are provided to you so that you can be successful. If you need to work on your writing, go to the Writing Center. If you need to work on your math, go to the Math Center. Do what is necessary for you to be successful. But also, as you do that, cultivate that relationship, not only with the faculty, but with the staff. Because what's also important about that, they also become folks who will write those letters of recommendations for you when you apply to graduate school or if you apply for your first job. If they know you, they can be a great advocate for you. That's why I encourage you to develop a relationship. I was fortunate to be able to do that as a student. Also, I would say, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. In fact, I don't believe real, deep, meaningful learning occurs if you're not feeling uncomfortable. Real learning occurs at the juncture of comfort and discomfort. Let me give you an example of that. And hopefully you'll take courses where if you don't like public speaking, that will make you stand up in front of a group of folks like this and speak publicly. Because if you really want to aspire to roles of leadership, speaking publicly will become important as part of that. And there's no reason why each and every one of you cannot be standing right up here like the mayor did, and like myself, and like Dr. Patel Rodriguez did, or like Lindy does. There's no reason for you not to be able to do that one day. Don't be afraid of public speaking. I know it's one of those fears that most of us have, but it only gets better if you get up in front of the room and do it, okay? Challenge yourself, please. Community engagement. And this is a broad category, but I would say this to you. When I was a student, I was fortunate. I went in the Army. When I came out of the Army, I had the VEET benefits, so I was able to essentially not have to borrow to go to undergraduate school. I didn't have to work because I had those resources. They were very generous back then. But what I did anyways, I went and got a job. Now, why would you do that, Lee? Why would you do that and not focus on your studies? Shouldn't you be focusing on your studies? Absolutely, you should be focusing on your studies. But you also have to remember that a lot of employers will say, great, you have great grades, but guess what you don't have? Experience. Work experience. I've seen too many of us, folks of Asian ancestry, not be able to get that first job because of the issue of work experience. So make sure that you go out and get a job, even if it's not a job you want. My first year at the university, I was a locker room attendant. Okay? I then was an office assistant in the student activities office. And then I was fortunate enough to get an RA job in housing. Please, whether you do it at the university or the college, or you do it in the community, think about that work experience. But also, it's not enough to do that. Engage in the fabric of the university's community. Join a student group. Join clubs. That's important because it leads to the next piece that I want to emphasize. Relationships. At the end of the day, your success will be defined by the relationships and the quality of those relationships you establish well into your future. And that starts when you go to college. I mean, it already started, but think about the opportunities you have in college to meet individuals who will become important to your future. Bill Gates met who? Steve Ballmer. Do you remember that name, Steve Ballmer? After Bill Gates stepped down as CEO, Steve Ballmer became CEO. They met in college. Okay? So remember, those friendships, you never know where it might lead you. Establish them and keep them. It's easier to keep those friendships today thanks to social media, Facebook, and all that. So please, take the time to cultivate meaningful relationships with your fellow students, in addition to the faculty and staff as well. But the last thing I want to say, I think most important, look at the people in this room. They care about each and every one of you and your success. We care about you. And more importantly, your family members care about you. I don't know much about each one of you. And in my case, as an example, I was the first in my family to go to college. So my parents didn't have that traditional college experience. They sacrificed. My mom left war-torn Korea and married my father and came to the U.S. because she wanted a better life for me. She didn't get to go and be a chancellor like I am, right? My father grew up in North Carolina during the Jim Crow era. He didn't have the opportunities that they sacrificed for me to have. And I would say that's probably true for many of you. Remember, your family has invested in you. Don't forget that. And please remember to be humble. A critical part of our heritage is to be humble. Remember, my mom used to say to me, don't let your head get so big that you can't walk through the door. Because it's so important when you come to the roles like the mayor and myself. You think we're sitting in these high... It's actually, we have as many people who work for us or are in the community, they are our, guess who, bosses. Keep that in mind, okay? So humility is so important. And your family is critical to that, and your friends and everyone in this room. So please don't lose sight of that. And again, congratulations to you. We know you will be successful. And for much is given to folks, much will be asked when you move on into the next phases of your career. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Lambert. It means so much to us to hear what it takes to be successful from someone who grew up as a person of color in the U.S. Thank you for your strong leadership in Tucson's higher education. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Hayoshi Delgado. Come here for a second. We have a very special group of guests today, and I would like him to introduce his colleague. And we are very, very appreciated that everybody is here today to support us. Thank you. Would you please introduce your...
Yes. Hello, everyone, and great to be here. And this is such a great organization we're working with. Definitely like to have all of my Raytheon Asian Pacific Association members to please stand up. we've been working together with OCA and want to continue with this collaboration. And we have a series of events coming up here in the near future, and definitely, but would like to recognize the RAPA members of the Raytheon Asian Pacific Association. Please stand up.
Thank you, Yoshi. And now, the lunch will start. We have 8 courses, so pace yourself, okay? And I know we have a lot of you have already bought raffle tickets, but raffle tickets will be still available for sale before we do the drawing. And bon appetit. Thank you.